The venerable sports editor of the Jamestown Post-Journal, Jim Riggs, recently advised us of the fact of the passing of Candid Camera creator Alan Funt. September 11th, 1999 file, All in a Day Sport, Jim reminded us of August 6th, 1990, when Peter Funt staged his Candid Camera bit at College Stadium. What a day that was. The idea was vintage Alan Funt, and it was played out in our little old Jamestown, New York. And here's the story from those who were participants.
Camera? I was just going to bring that up. That was probably one of the highlights of that I remember the most of keeping score down there on that scoreboard.
We're in Jamestown, New York, home of the Jamestown Expos. And the Expos field is going to be the setting later tonight for one of the most unusual Candid Camera sequences we've ever tried.
Because we was fighting for a playoff spot with Erie. So Tom O'Reilly says, I got a great idea. I got a call from Candid Camera this 10 o'clock in the morning. He said, they want to come over here, and I said, what do they know? They want to come to Jamestown, New York. He said, well, they want to do something on minor league baseball. And I said, they got some teams, you know, they got some clubs. The Mets have got a club. I think the Mets then were at Falls. I don't know exactly what town, but he said, I don't know, but they want to come here and do it. And I said, well, Tom, I'll tell you, you better check with the front office. I said, who knows? So anyway, he says, I'll check. He calls back, said, I said, I got no problem with it. He calls back, said, Montreal said it's fine. So when Peter's telling me what they're going to do, I'm thinking, that ain't going to hold. You know, it's not going to, it's going to be. So he told Juan Lopez was managing Niagara Falls, and we were in the race then with Erie. We was going right down to the thing where, and I thought, this is going to screw everything up. I mean, we were like a half a game back, and we had a doubleheader. This was in between games of a doubleheader. And nobody noticed that the two umpires did the first game. When he come out, nobody noticed the difference. Bill, he says, you know, I don't. He said, that's going to make Baxter mad. And so only Hargis knew it, the catcher. I knew it, and Juan Lopez, the manager of Niagara Falls. Nobody else knew it.
I came in for the first game and walked into the press box, and the next box to us was all this TV equipment. Now, we're used to TV equipment up there with the stations in Erie. Once in a while, a Buffalo station will be down there with shoulder-held cameras. But this was big stuff. This is big cameras on a tripod and so forth. And they had, as I recall, about 3 cameras. And all the time, they're all set up there, and all the time through the first game, this one guy over there is telling them, yeah, that's good, right? Oh, that angle right there. I said, bring it a little closer, bring it a little closer. He's giving all his directions. But they're not shooting. He's looking through this camera. And Todd and Jim Riggs were there when I came, and I asked them, I said, what? Nobody knew. So the one guy that was doing all the talking over there, and I thought, man, I've seen that guy somewhere before. Not thinking about who it was or anything, but it came the second game. Prior to the second game, during the intermission between the games, this fella come over to our booth and he said, I suppose you fellas are wondering what's going on. And I said, well, the thought had crossed our mind. Well, he introduced himself. He says, I'm Alan Funt, Jr. And we're doing Candid Camera.
The Expos' starting pitcher, a fellow named Bob Baxter. Now, what Baxter doesn't know is that his catcher is working tonight for the Candid Camera. And I'm going to pose as the home plate umpire. Now, whenever Baxter tries to throw a pitch, His catcher is going to confuse him with hand signals he's never seen before. In a few hours, there'll be several thousand people here, and of course, they won't know what's going on either. Now game time is approaching and the crowd files in. Out on the field, pitcher Bob Baxter is taking his warm-ups with catcher Dan Hargis. I'm behind the plate. One other thing, up in the press box, the game is being broadcast live on local radio station WJTN. Now, the two fellas doing the play-by-play have no idea about the Candid Camera stunt that will soon occur, and we'll listen in occasionally to their report.
And the best part of the whole thing was Pete and Skip on the radio. They
Well, nobody knew anything about it. That was the biggest kept secret there was down there. I just can't believe it didn't squeak out somehow. And it was a doubleheader. Started into the second game of the doubleheader, and things just went haywire. We couldn't figure out what was going on. Daugherty went out, stopped, the catcher kept stopping. No, they weren't getting the calls right, and Daugherty went out and stomping out there, and he really gave him the business and started hollering at Baxter. And all right, now get it right this time. So off the field he come, and back on the field. There wasn't a pitch thrown. This went on for I don't know how many minutes. It seemed like an hour. I'll tell you, it seemed just like an hour, because every time that pitcher would wind up, the catcher would stop him. Something would stop him, and he was getting absolutely frustrated. He didn't know what he was doing wrong. He just knew something was wrong, and he didn't know what he was doing wrong. So Daugherty finally went out there, and he said, "That's it, out." So they ejected him, or the umpire, I guess it was, ejected. And as he came down off the mound, then he went up to him. The umpire, of course, was Candid Camera. Can't think of his name now. But he walked up to him, put his arm over his shoulder, and he walked like, I don't know what I've done. His head was hanging down. He was really dejected. And he put his arm around him, and he said, "Smile, you're on Candid Camera." And it wasn't until a couple minutes after that they announced it on the PA system, because the whole crowd, everybody had been agitated by it. Everybody was upset. What the heck? You know, I've never seen anything like this. Come on, what's going on? And they were jeering and hollering and carrying on. It was absolutely fantastic. And when Todd announced it on the PA system, it just, everybody went nuts. It was.
All leads off against left-hander Rob Baxter, and we're set. Now we got time called, and there's confusion between the pitcher and the catcher, so let's get together.
How can you get messed up on the first signal of the ball game?
Three, slider, was okay? All right, cool.
This is ridiculous. I mean, this is the 48th game of the season, fans. If you don't have your signal straight by this time, I mean, you open up with a fastball. 9 times out of 10.
Time! What's going on here, Ted? Come down. Huh? You put down a number there. Just a minute. What is going on out there? Not putting down numbers, he's putting down, I know what it is. How long you two guys play together? You know the signals, let's go. We've never done that before. What? Night signals? Come on now. Fellas, we've been out here 5 minutes, we haven't thrown a pitch yet. We'll put down the numbers. All right. I don't know what you're doing. You did. You just missed it. I don't know what that is, man. That's not what's illegal. It's on, let me know. The fingers. I did. Did it? No, you did. You think you can do this now? We're going to get your manager out here and get you out of this game, fella. I don't know what these are again.
Hey, make sure you keep an eye on me now.
I'm watching you.
We haven't started the ball game yet.
I tell you, maybe it's time for Baxter to get himself a set of glasses. They ought to take him to the optometrist tomorrow to get him examined. As Hargis, evidently not the culprit, he doesn't seem to believe it either for some reason.
I don't understand what's going on here. Absolutely don't understand. Looks like Baxter is ready. He's looking in, and he's still nodding no. Still nodding no, and I don't know what he's doing. He's still nodding no. As if he can't see or something. His time is gone.
Now the home plate umpire is going to go over and talk to management, I believe, or they're going to put him on base.
It's good news for the refreshment stand. You folks that's down there in the refreshment area, stay in line. We haven't started the ball game yet.
I don't have all night to play this game.
Well, you pitched since you were a little league.
He's not giving me numbers.
Who is he?
Yeah, he's like going like this, like this, like this. He's what? He's not putting down numbers. Oh, no, wait, hey, you get back behind the plate.
Our team didn't know what the hell was going on.
He's not getting any numbers. What's he doing?
Told him to give me numbers, I'll throw it. And what's he giving you?
He's giving me this and this and this.
What does that mean?
No idea.
What? You don't know what it means? Just a minute, I'll run you out of here. What does it mean? What does this mean?
No idea. I have no idea.
Are you going to throw a pitch tonight, or are we going to stand here and talk about it?
Just on a one, I'm going to pass it.
Are you going to play ball?
Of course I am.
Yeah, I'm going to give you one more chance to have this fella play ball. Otherwise, we're going to run him out of here.
I don't have any more pitches.
Well, we're going to forfeit. All right, let's go. Let's go.
Okay, we're still waiting the first pitch. We're getting time called again. And now the umpire again going out to talk to the pitcher. And he pointed, he's out of there. He threw Baxter out of the ball game. And he pointed, he's out of there.
They're out of the game. Look at Baxter. He just dropped the ball and walked off.
He threw Baxter out of the ball game. One of the most unbelievable things in the history of professional baseball we're seeing right here.
My name's Peter Funt, and I do the Candid Camera show, Bob. And we just caught you on Candid Camera. Now, there's the camera up there taking your picture. And you are one of the nicest guys we've ever caught on Candid Camera, although you're shaking like a leaf.
Ladies and gentlemen, we'd like you all to smile because you and the Expos are on Candid Camera.
Candid Camera, folks, and we've all been taken.
Well, I guess we have.
And
We
I mean
sucked
it.
right into it, believe me. They did a great job.
Remember that all, Pete?
Oh, yes. Very fortunate that Skip didn't come out with one of his famous "God damn it." He was very close. He gets upset quickly. There would be something like that.
Yeah.
No doubt about it. It was well done. No, they handled it well. I felt sorry for the pitcher. He was so befuddled out there.
Hot or not. Yeah. And the best part of the whole thing was Pete and Skip on the radio. They plugged them right in, so Pete and Skip were giving the blow-by-blow over the radio. This is right in on the film. And I'll tell you, when it was all over with, and they're watching the tape up there in the booth, Alan Funt was literally rolling on the floor. It was that good. And Pete went out of his mind. Alan Funt was the umpire. And he threw that pitcher out of the ball game, and he hadn't thrown a pitch yet. And Skip says, he can't do that. He hasn't even thrown a ball yet, and he's thrown him out of the ball game. He can't do that.
I'm Bob Baxter, and I was a pitcher 11 years ago in the famous, I guess now famous, Jamestown Expos Candid Camera game.
Bob, can you tell us about how you got started in baseball and how you ended up in Jamestown?
Sure. Been playing baseball since I was 8. I grew up in Norwood, Massachusetts, which is about a half hour from Boston. Went to high school and college back there. Went to college at Harvard, played there for 4 years, and was drafted by the Expos in the 1990 draft. And after a few days of minicamp, my first team was the Jamestown Expos.
Let's talk a little bit about the game. Were there any indications that you were going to be on Candid Camera when you were warming up for that game that day?
None that I noticed. And I don't think anybody else noticed that many indications either. It was the second game of a doubleheader, and I was scheduled to start. The warm-ups went, I guess, according to plan, just like any other game. I guess it was about halfway through the season, so we had done this before, obviously. And after I warmed up in the bullpen and came back to the dugout, we usually sat for a minute or so I can get a cup of water and rest a little bit before the game would start. I guess looking back on it now, the one indication I did have, although I didn't think about it then, was after Dan Hargis and I got back to the dugout. Dan left the dugout, went back into the clubhouse, and he said he needed to get something or he had to go to the bathroom or whatever he said. And I, looking back at it now, I guess that's when he probably went back and got his microphone and got his final instructions. But at the time, I just thought he had to go to the bathroom.
Tell us a little about Hargis. He was the catcher, right?
Yeah, and he'd been sort of the catcher on most of the games that I had started so far that year. He was the guy who caught me most of the season, so I'd only known him for 6 or 7 weeks, but I guess I knew him fairly well in terms of players on that team.
What did you think was going on?
Well, I really thought it was just a regular game and didn't feel like there was anything abnormal. We did our warm-up pitches before the game out in the field, and things seemed to be just fine.
And then what happened? When did you notice something was different?
Well, the first time I tried to throw a pitch, Dan was giving me signals that were not signals for pitches. Actually, they weren't as outlandish as they looked on TV. The signals he gave me were signals that we would use for either pickoff plays or some other things that obviously you wouldn't use during the first pitch of a game. But they were things that he knew about and things that I knew about. So actually what happened is Candid Camera came back the next day with a video camera and did all the shots of Dan giving us signals. And I think Dan was hamming it up a little bit more the second day than he did the first night. So the signals he gave me were, pick off a runner at second base, or step off the rubber and hold the runner at first. And obviously, I kept on shaking my head.
Show us how you shake your head. You did it so well.
Well, I try not to do it quite as much these days. But anyway, he was just giving me signals that I had seen before, so they weren't as strange, I guess, as they looked on TV.
Why didn't you just throw a pitch?
I threw a couple, and each time I threw one, the umpires would call a timeout. I guess if they had allowed me to throw a pitch, it would have been an official game with an unofficial umpire, and I'm not sure what the league would have done about that. So I tried to throw a pitch a couple times and actually threw a couple, and Hargis just sort of jumped out of the way, and they called timeout before the pitch actually counted.
And everybody marveled at the fact that you didn't seem to get angry. Why weren't you angry?
I guess the real answer is I couldn't figure out anything else to do. The situation was so ridiculous, I thought, that there was no way that I was at fault. I couldn't imagine anything that I was doing wrong then. So it seemed to be one of those situations that eventually everybody would see that I was doing what I was supposed to be doing. So there didn't seem to be that much of a reason to shout or get angry at that time. I figured that the situation would get resolved somehow, although of course I had no idea what the situation was at that time. Actually, my thought when Hargis was giving me the signals that I'd seen before, but that obviously weren't pitch signals, was that he was either sick or delirious or had some sort of a dizziness or some spell. And then I started thinking about the fact that he left the dugout before the game, and I thought to myself, he must be sick, he must be not feeling well, and I guess just out of his head or something. That was the only thing that came into my mind, is that Hargis was sick. I'm doing as best I can. I have no idea what's going on, but eventually it'll work itself out.
What about when the coach came out and was pretty angry with you?
He was, but I was out of things to say at that point. I couldn't think of anything else to say. I couldn't defend myself anymore. I mean, when you're out in the field, the only people who know what's going on are you and the catcher. Nobody else can see those signals. So it was my word against Dan's, and at the time I guess I was losing, but I had nothing else to say.
What did you think when Funt came out from behind the umpire's mask?
I still had, even when he walked out and started talking to me, I still had no idea. He still had his mask on his face. I guess the other indication looking back is that I did notice that we had a different umpire for the second game, but I guess I was on this whole sickness kick, and I figured that the first umpire from the first game had gotten sick, and they had to call in a replacement. So it just didn't cross my mind that the Candid Camera guy was going to be behind the plate. But anyway, he came out, and I still had no idea what was going on, although I knew, or I thought I was doing everything right. And he came out and finally took his mask off, and it still took 3-4 seconds to sink in that this was somebody from TV.
And were you ready right then to start playing?
No, I was definitely, I'm not sure shaken up is the right term, but I was, my heart was beating a mile a minute, so they gave me about 10 or 15 minutes to sit back in the dugout and calm down and sort of catch my breath a little bit after that.
And how did you pitch?
Actually, I think I struck out the side in the first inning, which was pretty fun. I think we eventually won the game 7-4 or something like that. So it was ended up being a good night.
What did your family think when they heard about it?
Well, I guess they first didn't really know what to think. My dad was a little angry. He sort of, his idea was that they were messing with my career and trying to mess me up before a game that meant something. But in the great scheme of things, proud's not the right word, but I guess they're sort of excited that one of their families on TV.
Well, what have you gotten out of being on Candid Camera?
I guess a little bit of acclaim, not a huge amount. They were supposed to pay me $100 the next day, and I never got the check, so maybe they owe me royalties for every time it's been on. I'm not sure what the deal is there. Maybe I should call the Candid Camera people and see if my $100 check is still over there. But I mean, certainly they were very nice to the whole thing. I've seen it on TV a couple times. I saw it I guess that winter after that season. I saw it on TV, and then it's been on, I think, a few times in sort of Candid Camera, 50th anniversary shows. Some of my friends have seen it on TV. We have a friend who married somebody from Sweden, and she was back in Sweden visiting his family, and I guess the Candid Camera show popped up on the TV north of the Arctic Circle up in Canada, in Sweden. So that was quite an interesting way to spread the word about the Jamestown Expos.
Wow, so the Jamestown Expos have been all over the world.
They've been all over the world.
Well, what have you been doing since then? Can you tell us a little bit about your baseball career?
I played in the Expos system for 7.5 years. Made it through all the different levels except for Montreal, so I spent the last 2 years in AAA up in Ottawa, and then retired after the 1997 season, and have been in California since. My wife and I now have 2 daughters. I work in a bank out here in California, and I've shown the tape to a few people, so some people here know about it, but it's certainly a part of my life that I guess not as many people out here know about as people in Jamestown do.
What's your lasting impression of Jamestown and of that summer that you spent with us?
Certainly, the Candid Camera night is the one thing that I and everybody else always comes back to. I mean, there's loads of other things that I think of, eating wings for a nickel or a dime on certain nights in different restaurants, and the great crowd support we had at the games. But I mean, certainly nothing in my mind compares to the experience I had that night with Candid Camera.
Great, thank you very much.
We're in Jamestown, New York, home of the Jamestown Expos. And the Expos field is going to be the setting later tonight for one of the most unusual Candid Camera sequences we've ever tried. We hope to catch the Expos starting pitcher, a fellow named Bob Baxter. Now, what Baxter doesn't know is that his catcher is working tonight for the Candid Camera. And I'm going to pose as the home plate umpire. Now, whenever Baxter tries to throw a pitch, his catcher is going to confuse him with hand signals he's never seen before. In a few hours, there'll be several thousand people here, and of course, they won't know what's going on either. Now game time is approaching and the crowd files in. Out on the field, pitcher Bob Baxter is taking his warm-ups with catcher Dan Hargis. I'm behind the plate. One other thing, up in the press box, the game is being broadcast live on local radio station WJTN. Now, the two fellas doing the play-by-play have no idea about the Candid Camera stunt that will soon occur, and we'll listen in occasionally to their report.
Right-handed hitter Kirk Mendenhall leads off against left-hander Rob Baxter, and we're set. Now we got time called, and there's confusion between the pitcher and the catcher, so let's get together.
How can you get messed up on the first signal of the ball game?
One foul, three, slider with a face. All right, cool.
This is ridiculous. I mean, this is the 48th game of the season, fans. If you don't have your signal straight by this time, I mean, you open up with a fastball. 9 times out of 10.
Time! What's going on here, Pete? I said he put down. Huh? He put down a number there. Just a minute. What is going on out here? Not putting down numbers. He's putting down. I know it is. How long you two guys play together? You know the signals. Let's go. We've never done that before. What? Right signals? Come on now. Fellas, we've been out here 5 minutes. We haven't thrown a pitch yet. I just said one. Well, put down the numbers. I don't know what you did. You just missed it. I don't know what that is doing. That's not illegal. It's on numbers with the fingers. I did. You think you can do this now? We're going to get your manager out here and get you out of this game, fella. I don't know what these are again. Hey, make sure you keep an eye on me now. I'm watching you.
We haven't started the ball game yet.
I tell you, maybe it's time for Baxter to get himself a set of glasses. They ought to take him to the optometrist tomorrow to get him examined. As Hargis, evidently not the culprit, he doesn't seem to believe it either for some reason.
I don't understand what's going on here. I absolutely don't understand. Looks like Baxter is ready. He's looking in, and he's still nodding no. Still nodding no, and I don't know what he's doing. He's still nodding no. As if he can't see or something. His time is gone.
Now the home plate umpire is going to go over and talk to management, I believe, or they're going to put him on base.
It's good news for the refreshment stand. You folks that's down there in the refreshment area, stay in line. We haven't started the ball game yet.
I don't have all night to play this game.
Well, he's pitched since you were a little league?
He's not giving me numbers.
Who isn't?
Danny's always going like this, like this, like this.
Hey, what?
He's not putting down numbers.
Oh, no, wait, hey, you get back behind the plate. I'm going to handle this. Now, what's the problem?
He's not giving any numbers. What's he doing?
He told him to give me numbers, I'll throw it.
And what's he giving you?
He's giving me this and this and this. And
what does that mean?
No idea.
What?
I have no idea.
You don't know what it means? Just a minute, I'll run you out of here. What does it mean? What does this mean?
No idea. I have no idea.
Are you going to throw a pitch tonight, or are we going to stand here and talk about it?
What's on a one? I'll throw a pass.
Are you going to play ball?
Of course I am.
Yeah, I'm going to give you one more chance to have this fella play ball. Otherwise, we're going to run him out of here.
Yeah, I don't have any more pitches.
Well, we're going to forfeit. All right, let's go. Let's go.
Okay, we're still waiting the first pitch. We're getting time called again. And now the umpire again going out to talk to the pitcher. And he pointed, he's out of there. He threw Baxter out of the ball game. He threw Baxter out of the ball game. One of the most unbelievable things in the history of professional baseball we're seeing right here.
My name's Peter Funt, and I do the Candid Camera show, Bob.
We just caught you on Candid Camera. Now, there's the camera up there taking your picture. And you are one of the nicest guys we've ever caught on Candid Camera, although you're shaking like a leaf.
Ladies and gentlemen, we'd like you all to smile because you and the Expos are on Candid Camera.
The Expos are on Candid Camera, folks, and we've all been taken.
Well, I guess we have.
And I mean
sucked right into it, believe me. They did a great job.
Kristen Stein, Director of the Fenton History Center in Jamestown, New York. We hope you've enjoyed this presentation, which is just one of many stories from our community's rich history. The Fenton History Center preserves our shared history through the presentation of educational programs and exhibits, the maintenance of a collection of local artifacts and archival materials, and a library specializing in local history and genealogy, all for the benefit and use of the public. For more information about the Fenton History Center and its activities, call 664-6256.